On Tuesday, the cabinet approved the government reorganization bill centered on getting rid of the Prosecution office and stripping the finance ministry of its budget planning role. The government is pouring all efforts into bringing back the public services shut down by a fire that broke out at a major public data center in Daejeon last Friday. Over 14% of government services have been restored as of Tuesday afternoon. President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba held summit talks in Busan today and agreed to further activate the two countries' shuttle diplomacy as a cornerstone for a new Seoul-Tokyo relations. South Korea's prosecutor's office will be gone by next October, following cabinet approval for a government reorganization bill today. The nearly 8-decade-old office will be replaced by two new agencies starting October 2nd, 2026. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin leads us tonight.
Major changes are coming to South Korea's government. On Tuesday, the cabinet passed an amendment to the government reorganization bill. The centerpiece is the prosecution reform, a key campaign pledge of President Lee Jae-myung.
그래서 검찰 제도를 개편하는 문제는 정말로 중요한 일이에요. 특히 이제 한 국가 공동체의 질서를 유지하는 최종 기구거든요. 죄진 사람은 오히려 보호해가지고 억울한 피해자를 깜빵 보내고 나쁜 사람한테 돈 뜯게 해주고 이거 진짜 많아요.
Under the new law, the prosecutor's office will be dismantled and replaced by two new agencies, one overseeing investigations under the Interior Ministry and another handling indictments under the Justice Ministry. Following a one-year grace period, the new agencies are set to launch in October 2026. Another major change involves the Finance Ministry. While it will continue managing taxation, economic policy, and treasury matters, its budget planning responsibilities will be transferred to a newly created agency under the Prime Minister's office at the start of next year. This is to strengthen checks and balances within the government and ensure more transparent fiscal management.
The reorganization will require tighter coordination among ministries and frequent consultations. President Lee has called for regular inter-ministerial meetings, with key developments reported directly to him.
Also during Tuesday's meeting, the president ordered all government ministries to inspect their facilities and systems related to public safety and cybersecurity following the recent fire at the National Information Resources Service data center.
다음 주 국무회의 때까지 각 부처들은 전부 이거는 이런 문제가 있을 걸로 보이지는데 점검했더니 문제가 없다. 또는 이거는 문제가 있다. 아니면 이건 시스템을 보강해야 된다. 이거는 이런 매뉴얼을 보강해야 되겠다. 뭐 문제점이 있는 것들을 최대한 좀 발굴을 해서
A comprehensive review will be carried out at next week's cabinet meeting. The president went on to criticize the government for failing to establish an emergency backup system that would have allowed online services to continue operating from alternative data centers. The creation of this system will be overseen by the Presidential National AI Strategy Committee, launched earlier this month. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Also on Tuesday, the government and ruling Democratic Party agreed to ease some criminal punishments for businesses to allow more leeway for corporate activities. Now, that includes abolishing the charge of criminal breach of trust. Our An Sung-jun reports.
The South Korean government and ruling Democratic Party announced that they plan to abolish the charge of criminal breach of trust. The decision was announced at an economic task force meeting on Tuesday to discuss rationalizing economic criminal and civil liabilities. The criminal breach of duty or breach of trust charge is generally applied to owners, directors, or managers of a business who are accused of gaining proprietary profit, benefiting a third party, or damaging one's business by breaching their duty. The ruling Democratic Party claims that breach of trust charge often burdens businesses and hampers innovation, as business decisions that lead to a loss could be examined as a crime of breach of trust.
첫째, We will prepare improvement measures for breach of trust, which has been identified as a factor constraining corporate management activities while establishing institutional safeguards.
However, the People Power Party says the move harms employees and investors who suffer losses due to breach of trust. PPP Policy Committee Chair Kim Do-up told reporters on Tuesday that the abolition is simply about granting immunity to those who have brought loss to corporations.
The move to abolish criminal breach of trust is merely to save Lee Jae-myung, and it is contradictory to creating a better country for business.
This claim comes as President Lee faces the same charge in the Daejangdong land development case, where the trial is currently suspended. Criminal breach of trust was one among the 110 financial crimes that are being prioritized for improvement by the ruling party and government. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
Following a fire at a major government data center last Friday, some key functions such as postal and financial services are now back online. But the overall recovery rate of systems still remains at around 14%. Our Oh Seong has the latest.
Authorities are making all-out efforts to bring disrupted public services back online after Friday's fire at a major public data center paralyzed government systems across the country. As of Tuesday, only 91 of 647 disrupted government services have been restored, a recovery rate of about 14%. Some services, including the issuing of resident registration certificates through the gov't.kr portal, came back online on Monday. Korea Post also said fresh food parcel counters would reopen from Tuesday, following the restoration of postal and financial services ahead of the Chuseok holiday rush. While the government is first restoring 551 services that suffered no physical damage, the rest were completely destroyed by the fire. A list released on Tuesday afternoon shows the affected services graded from 1 to 4 in the order of importance. 38 Grade 1 services have the highest level of impact or demand, socially or operationally. 20 have been restored so far. 86 Grade 2 services includes most government websites and portals, including the onnara e-document system used by civil servants and an online safety reporting system. Only 16% have been recovered so far. A full recovery will take at least a month, according to the Ministry of Interior and Safety.
The government is focusing all resources on restoring critical services as quickly as possible. However, 96 systems from the destroyed data hall cannot be immediately restarted, so we are transferring them to the Daegu Center's cloud system to secure alternatives as fast as possible.
Among those 96 systems destroyed by the fire, the National Disaster and Safety Portal, which provides updates on emergency guidelines, shelter locations and disaster recovery support in the event of emergencies, is still offline. Internal networks such as the onnara cloud, used for daily administrative tasks, were also lost in the blaze, forcing some officers to revert to handwritten documents.
We deeply apologize once again to the public. It is expected to take about 2 weeks to prepare the resources and another 2 weeks to set up the systems, but we aim to accelerate the process as much as possible with cooperation from firms already housed at the Daegu Center.
With prolonged disruptions inevitable, authorities are providing relief measures. September property tax payment deadlines have been extended, while fees for issuing resident documents are being waived. An Interior Ministry official told Arirang News that when it comes to foreign nationals, immigration and visa services under the Justice Ministry's data systems have not been disrupted. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
It's AI week here in Seoul. Global tech giants, leading domestic companies, government officials, and academics have gathered here in Seoul to engage in focused discussions on a roadmap toward innovation in the AI ecosystem. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has more.
AI Week, a place to have a peek at South Korea's AI innovation landscape, kicked off in Seoul on Tuesday, hosted by the Ministry of Science and ICT. The event serves as a national strategic platform to showcase Korea's vision and cooperation across AI industries, policies, technologies, and networking. This 3-day event saw the full participation of global tech giants such as OpenAI and Perplexity. Perplexity outlined its strategy for targeting the broader Asian market, including South Korea, while OpenAI highlighted the critical importance of the Korean market.
Fundamentally, it comes down to when you look at any given metric, whether that's user adoption, whether that's the government support for AI, whether that's how companies are deploying AI, on all of those different vectors, Korea is really leading the charge.
Meanwhile, cutting-edge AI solutions were on full display in the exhibition area, including digital healthcare. One company introduced an AI-based life care service specifically designed for elderly people living alone.
As single-person households continue to increase and Korea has already entered a super-age society with the population over 65 growing, we expect the demand for our service to rise significantly.
This care service utilizes IoT sensors and AI algorithms to monitor the daily activities of elderly users remotely, providing timely alerts to family members in case of emergencies. In addition, visitors could explore a wide range of innovative technologies, including large language models, robotics, AI semiconductors, and cloud technologies. The event also featured a town hall meeting where the Minister of Science announced a national AI vision. This session included open discussions with participants, highlighting the government's efforts to develop policies in cooperation with the public. With this ambitious vision, South Korea aims to become one of the world's top 3 AI powerhouses. 문지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba met in the southeastern city of Busan today, hoping to bring their ties closer. The leaders announced a joint consultative body to be operated to tackle the aging populations, among other issues. Our Presidential Office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
After around a month since their last talks in Tokyo, the leaders of the two neighbors sat down again. This time in South Korea's southeastern city of Busan. The summit began with a welcome ceremony by the Traditional Guard of Honor, presenting a procession of the centuries-old Joseon Tongsinsa diplomatic mission, a symbol of the long-standing exchanges between the two neighbors. It was more of a farewell meeting for Ishiba, but a message to continue cooperation was clear.
한국과 일본이 물리적으로 가까운 이 거리만큼 정서적으로도 경제적으로도 또 사회 문화적으로도 안보상으로나 정말로 가까워지길 바랍니다.
The sentiment was echoed by the Japanese leader.
I sincerely think that it's meaningful to conclude my last summit diplomacy with President Lee. I hope we can interact more often to yield more outcomes from our shuttle diplomacy.
President Lee Jae-myung and Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced a joint message to operate a joint consultative body on tackling population decline and revitalizing regions outside their respective capitals. Their focus was also on resuming their joint cooperative committee on science and technology, ways to cooperate for denuclearization of the peninsula, as well as partnership at a time of the fast-changing global trade order. The meeting was followed by a dinner, during which snowcraft from Ishiba's hometown of Totori Prefecture, as well as Korean galbijjim from E's hometown of Andong, and other dishes representing harmony. Ishiba is on a 2-day visit to South Korea, which is his first and will be the last visit before he steps down as Prime Minister in October. It's the first time in 21 years that a Japanese leader is visiting a city other than Seoul for a bilateral summit. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Ishiba paid a visit to the grave of the late Lee Soo-hyun in Busan, a Korean student who sacrificed his life in 2001 to rescue a Japanese man who had fallen onto the tracks at a railway station in Tokyo. No other sitting Japanese prime minister has done so. Meantime, First Lady Kim Hae-kyung has been diagnosed with an ear disease, causing dizziness, and was unable to attend the meeting. What's key from here is how to carry on bilateral cooperation with a looming leadership change in Japan at a time of rising global uncertainty in politics and trade. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Meetings between the leaders of South Korea, the U.S. and China are likely to take place in Gyeongju City on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting next month. And that's according to diplomatic sources on Tuesday, amid speculation that President Lee Jae-myung, Donald Trump, and Xi Jinping could hold several bilaterals in Seoul. Reports have emerged that Beijing was making inquiries about reserving a luxury hotel in central Seoul, but canceled that reservation, and making it likely the Chinese leader will remain in Gyeongju throughout his stay in South Korea. Now, if that's the case, top-level meetings with Xi would take place in the southern city. Once the schedule and venue for the U.S.-China summit are confirmed, details for the South Korea-U.S. and South Korea-China summits will likely be finalized as well. South Korea is hosting Japan and China as the three nations look to modernize their civil services for future generations. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Korea, Japan, and China are joining forces to shape the future of their civil services. That mission brought senior officials to Seoul for the 10th Heads of Personnel Authorities meeting of China, Japan, and Korea, held in Korea for the first time in a decade. Marking the 20th anniversary of their Trilateral personnel network, the two-day event focuses on innovation in personnel administration for future generations, highlighting the need to modernize systems in a rapidly changing world. As host, Korea stressed the meeting is about more than policy, it's about people.
Public service is about serving the people. To do that well, we need to ask what steps should be taken, and that's the focus of this agenda. We are especially looking at what the younger generation of civil servants are thinking and how we can better support them going forward.
Over the past 2 decades, the network has become one of the few ministerial-level mechanisms among the three countries that has consistently fostered cooperation. Officials say that legacy is worth protecting, but also needs to evolve.
All of our countries face the same challenge of rapidly changing demographics, and we need smart ways to address it. Another major issue is the digital transformation, with AI and emerging industries like crypto developing differently in each nation. The goal is to tackle these challenges together, finding solutions through trilateral cooperation and building a brighter future for all three countries.
For Korea, officials say their role is not just to participate, but to lead by example, particularly in working conditions for civil servants.
Many frontline officials face stress in disaster situations, so we're also creating institutional measures to protect their mental health and help them stay motivated to serve the people.
As the three countries mark 2 decades of cooperation, the meeting in Seoul is not just a reflection of how far they have come, but a signal of their shared determination to prepare public institutions and the people within them for the generations to come. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Now over in New York, a senior North Korean diplomat has said Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear program in a rare address to the United Nations. Our Lee Seung-ja's report.
A senior North Korean diplomat has reaffirmed that Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear weapon, calling it a sacred and untouchable cornerstone of its sovereignty. Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sung-kyung delivered the remarks on Monday at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. It was the first time a high-ranking North Korean official had spoken from the assembly podium since 2018. Kim declared that the nuclear arsenal is enshrined in both North Korea's law and the Constitution, describing it as an absolute asset that guarantees survival. He also argued that calls for denuclearization amount to demanding that North Korea surrender its sovereignty and right to exist.
We will never give up nuclear power, which is our state law, national policy, and sovereign power, as well as the right to existence. Under any circumstances, we will never walk away from this position.
The speech came as the U.S. maintains its policy of complete denuclearization of North Korea. Washington has left the door open for talks with the regime, and leader Kim Jong-un has previously signaled conditional openness to dialogue. Still, the vice minister rejected any scenario where the nuclear program would be abandoned. Kim also criticized joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea and trilateral drills with Japan, describing them as real war simulations aimed at the North. He framed these activities as justification for Pyongyang's nuclear stance. However, the diplomat also hinted at openness to engagement. He said North Korea is willing to expand cooperation with countries that treat it with respect and pursue friendly relations, regardless of differences in political systems. The speech comes as both Seoul and Washington say they hope to re-engage Pyongyang in talks aimed at reducing tensions and advancing peace on the Korean Peninsula. There's also speculation that President Donald Trump could seek to revive direct dialogue with Kim Jong-un during his upcoming visit to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit at the end of October. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea is gearing up for the fourth launch of its homegrown rocket Nuri in late November, following its last test back in May 2023. Our Park Kwon-woo tells us more.
November 27th, the domestically developed Nuri rocket is set to blast off for its fourth launch from Gyeongju County in Jeollanam-do Province in the country's southwest. The Korea Aerospace Administration said Tuesday that the launch is scheduled for around 1 a.m. that day, with backup dates running through December 4th in the case of any variables such as the weather. This will be the first nighttime launch as the timing is optimal for one of the main satellites on board to enter its mission orbit, where it'll observe auroras and the atmosphere. But the exact time will be confirmed the day before. The process for a successful launch is ongoing, with the wet dress rehearsal, a critical pre-launch test to check whether the launch vehicle can withstand extreme cryogenic temperatures, was completed earlier this month. The spaceship will also carry a biocabinet, enabling biological experiments in space, a first for Korea. And another standout for this launch is that it's being conducted by a private company, Hanwha Aerospace, for the first time, although with governmental support.
The government should be supporting companies with technology or funding. Space competition is no longer a hegemony fight or just for expedition. You need to see it from a space economics perspective. That's why a transition to a private-led operation is important.
This launch marks the first since the establishment of the Korea Aerospace Administration after the last Nuri launch in May 2023, following the first in 2021 and the second in 2022. And officials say especially this mission will be a key step toward the rocket's commercialization.
If private companies keep strengthening their capabilities with steady support from space agencies, they'll gain the capacity to launch on their own, opening the way for Nuri to place commercial satellites as well as public ones into orbit.
He added that will even lead to private companies exporting their services later on. And with more Nuri launches planned over the next few years, Korea is steadily preparing to move into orbit as a space powerhouse. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
The last day of September also saw a wide daily temperature gap. This morning, the temperature in Seoul was 70.3 degrees Celsius and only 5 degrees in Daegwallyeong. As the day went on, the daily temperature difference widened as the temperature rose to 25 degrees in Seoul and 20 degrees in Daegwallyeong. With these huge temperature swings, please take good care of your health. As of the rain forecast, it will start raining on Thursday night in Jeollanam-do province and Jeju Island before expanding to other southern regions, the eastern part of Gangwon-do province and the Chungcheong-do provinces on Friday. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Daegu will start off at 17 degrees, Busan at 19 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 26 to 28 degrees in most parts of the country. Rain will mostly stop on Friday night, but it will continue until Saturday morning in the eastern part of Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.